The Celtics had a monster win over the Washington Wizards yesterday. Monster performance from Jaylen Brown, all NBA level performance from Jaylen Brown, some big minutes from Josh Minott, some thoughts and takeaways there. I'm joined by new co-host Bruce Veliz. Bruce, what's popping, dude?
What's up, Adam? Glad to be on the show and to be talking some Boston Celtics this season. And like you mentioned, we had a big game yesterday where Jaylen Brown has really taken off and soared into these new levels, and something that Celtics fans that we knew would coming into this season, but I think for everyone else in the outside world is kind of great to see as a Celtics fan.
Yeah, dude, it was one of those games. If anyone subscribes to the Celtics Chronicle newsletter, you'll know I was very critical of the team on Wednesday morning. I went through like where the lack of identity is on offense, right? The lack of pace, the lack of tempo and decision making. I just went through a list. I was very critical. So for them then to wake up today, obviously games happen while I'm asleep. So then wake up today and be like, dude, this team played ridiculously well. And you could see like the grass shoots of an identity forming, and everything they'd spoke about during the summer, playing fast, pressuring the rim, finding the open guy and making the right reads. It all kind of came together. Now, obviously, the harsher judges will be like, well, Washington were 27th in the NBA in defensive rating coming into this game. It's not like they were going to put up much resistance. I get that. I hear you. But I also want to put out there that every win is a step forward. Every game is a chance to kind of develop this identity that they don't have yet, but we're starting to see those grass shoots from. So it was just for me, it was an encouraging performance because we saw this team lose to a Utah Jazz that isn't exactly lighting the world on fire, right? So it was an improvement nevertheless. I do want to start with Jaylen Brown. I think Jaylen Brown has been on a tear lately. He's over his last 5 games, he's had 4 30-point or more nights. The biggest night of those was against Utah, actually, that followed up by the one yesterday against Washington. I pulled up his numbers over the last 5 games as well, just to kind of give some context. So over 5 games, he's averaging, and I'm looking to the side because obviously it's on over screen. He's averaging 29 points. We'll round up. So 5 assists, 1.2 steals, 3.4 boards, shooting 66.2% from 2. And then that 3-point shot's been a bit rough for him over the last week. So 32.3% from deep. He's balling, dude. He's thriving in his more advanced scoring role.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And this is something that I mentioned a little bit earlier, but like I said, something that us Celtics fans can kind of see coming through. We obviously know Jaylen Brown is one of the better dominant wings on the ball as a creator and being able to someone to attack the rim. And he's been able to do that for this Boston Celtics team very well this season. I kind of alluded to this when I was with Celtics Digest, but kind of getting into the season, talking about this team, I thought that they would play a little bit of a faster tempo, kind of playing up to Jaylen Brown's kind of speeds and kind of playing into his play style. As we kind of saw that versus the Indiana Pacers 2 seasons ago when the Celtics were in the Eastern Conference Finals, when he won that Eastern Conference Finals MVP. They're playing that little bit of a faster pace to match that tempo that really thrived for Jaylen Brown. And we kind of see that similarly within this Celtics team this year, playing with that faster pace, being a little bit more aggressive downhill, making those extra passes, working the ball around. And it's really worked for Jaylen Brown's ability to really thrive. You mentioned the 3-point percentage is a little bit down this year in these last 5 games. And I've noticed around the Boston Celtics this year, that it has been a little bit lower for some of their other star players. So maybe getting accustomed to, without Jason Tatum being in this lineup and having to work out that offense with taking more shots, is something that this team needs to get through the first half. But with Jaylen Brown being that number one option, he clearly has not let down to anybody in his doubters that he cannot be this number one option after getting all these random critiques over these last years of how he can't dribble, how he can't play defense, how he's not this effective. Jaylen Brown is clearly proving those haters wrong and showing it not only on the court, but also off the court within the city of Boston, which I really, really like to see. Unfortunately, that game where he dropped 40 points versus the Jazz, couldn't really get the win, but he gets his bounce back with a 35-point game here and a big, big victory over the Washington Wizards, almost beating them by 30 points at home on a nice bounce back W.
Yeah, I think that one of the big takeaways here is just how aggressive he's being, right? So I did a Substack live on Tuesday. So when I did with the newsletter comes like once a week, I'll go live on that platform and just kind of chop it up with whoever's available from the subscriber base. And we were talking about why the Celtics have kind of struggled with the guard play in terms of guard scoring. Derek White struggles, Peyton Pritchard struggles. Obviously, Pritchard's finding other ways to be effective now with that mid-range game and just being able to penetrate and attack dudes off the dribble a bit more than what we were used to seeing. But one of the biggest takeaways was like, this is a guard-led offense. Jaylen isn't being asked to be a creator. He's definitely just playing in a bigger, I usually call it like a play finisher role. And he's doing more than just finishing plays. He's generating opportunities as like a secondary creator. But the truth is, he's realistically the only guy that has the physical attributes to beat guys off the bounce and get to where he wants to get to. And you could see that against Washington, even if they could hang with him when he went into his like tweens or he went into his size up moves. Defenders, when they did stick with him, he would just wait for them to give up their lead hip as they were trying to force him weak. And he would just go right through them. He's so strong. And just that athletic burst on that first step really gave them a nightmare. And then if you play him too close, he's going to snatch back and pull up in the mid-range. If you sag off him, he's just going to get all the way to the rim. And I think that it took a few games, especially for Brown, to kind of adjust to the lack of spacing that's around him. He's obviously playing in more clogged lanes now. Defenses are sending to him more frequently. They're definitely trying to take away the rim. And that's why we're seeing such an uptick in mid-range efficiency. If you look at what the Celtics offense last night, 42% of their shots came from mid-range. And we're talking long mid-range, a lot of them. Well, I think it was like 17% came from long mid-range, and then the rest of that 42% was like the shorter mid-range area. But that was the most significant portion of Boston's shot profile yesterday. They took more in percentage range. They took more mid-range shots than they did threes. Like, because that's becoming such an important counter to this team, you can feel a bit more confident sending two guys on a closeout to force a guy off the line because you just don't have as many shooters. And then the counter to that is, well, we don't have as many 3-point shooters, but we have Jaylen Brown, Peyton Pritchard, and Fernie Simons, Derek White to a bit of a lesser degree, unless he's in that flow to go off that right hand, that can counter that heavy closeout with a couple of dribbles into that mid-range area. I think Brown's really leading by example, not only in his point scoring, but also in his shot selection, and taking shots that are good for him, not what the analytics are saying, but what are analytically sound for him, and other guys are starting to follow suit.
Yeah, I really like those points that you made, Adam. I also liked how you brought up the mid-range shooting in this game because for the game previous versus the Utah Jazz, the Celtics really struggled from 3-point range as a team. So kind of find those abilities as a unit to kind of overcome those and kind of restructure your game plan for these next games is very important for the Celtics, obviously. Realizing that the three wasn't really working, trying to attack a team in the Wizards who obviously aren't really, like you mentioned, the greatest defensive team, one of the more younger teams in the NBA, and one of the more teams out at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. It was a little bit easier for the Celtics to kind of find their ways to get to those shots, regardless if it was Jaylen Brown beating guys off the dribble, Peyton Pritchard, who, like you mentioned, has basically gotten better at one aspect of his game every single year, coming into the league as just a catch and shoot scorer, but has been able to now be able to be a playmaker, someone who can work in the pick and roll, someone who now has also been able to fight for offensive rebounds, attack at the basket as well. You also got guys like Josh Minott, Derek White, Anthony Simons, guys that are willing to attack the basket and kind of be relentless at that, which is very, very key for this Celtics squad on the offensive end. And ultimately, I think when you look at Jaylen Brown, right, he shot 62% from the field yesterday, or is that what I think that says in 50% from 3-point range, 7 for 9 from the free throw. That's great shooting percentages from a number one option, someone that, like you mentioned, is getting, maybe not the offense ran through him as it's obviously getting played through the guards in their kind of room, but is someone that is expected to take that workload for this Boston Celtics team and to be that number one option, not only on the offensive side, but also be that guy that can help be that lockdown defender on the defensive end too, because Jaylen Brown does not slight his defensive abilities, and we know that as well.
Yeah, I think one of the most key takeaways from this is it's not that they're not asking Jaylen to create. It's just that he's being very intelligent about when he decides to take on that creation. When he's forcing it, you see him. We all know that one of the biggest knocks on Jaylen's overall skill set is that once he dribbles himself into traffic, then he's gonna, like, the handle gets a bit loose, right? And that's fine. Like, everybody's gonna have a flaw. We're not saying that Jaylen Brown's bad at anything. Everybody, unless you're a top 5 dude, and even if you're a top 5 dude, there's usually areas for improvement. That's definitely probably the biggest one for Jaylen right now. But in terms of like actual playmaking and passing, he had some dimes, dude. There was one where he kind of drove, and I want to get onto why this was important in a moment, but it was one play where he drove from the slot, got into the paint, drew 2, and then Josh Minott cut out of the corner, and he kind of like hit that like swing under pass, one-handed shovel pass to Minott, and then Minott just yammed it down. A few years ago, JB would attempt that pass, he wouldn't make it, not through that much traffic. And I think what the difference is now is when he's got a live dribble and he gets crowded, things start to go bad. If he's already gone into a gather step or he's already into his layup movements and he's got control of the ball, he can make those reads now and he can make them quickly. The processing speeds improve and the final product on the passes improve too. I think that's been one of the biggest takeaways of the year. Is it's not that they're not asking him to create, they're asking him to create when it makes sense for him. And that's a key differentiator. But you can see if you go and look at touches, which are a very common indicator of playmaking load, you can see Jaylen Brown is clearly third. It goes Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Jaylen Brown. Then if you go on to average time of touches, it's the same pattern all the way through. Brown is being asked to be that quick decision maker. They call it 0.5 offense. Half a second to make a decision whether you're going to pass, dribble, or shoot. And you're constantly iterating through that decision-making process as you navigate your way through the half court. So I think that he's definitely thriving now. We're seeing an all-NBA level version of JB. And that brings me on to just getting into why this play was important so much. If you think back to the last 2-3 years with the Celtics team, one of the key parts of their offense has been short roll creation out to corner threes. You'll have a big man set the screen. Not always a big man. Sometimes you'd go inverted because you had the luxury of Drew Holiday, who's an excellent screener for his size. Even Derek White had some short roll creation last year. But you would go pick and roll. Whoever the screener was would short roll around to about the nail, receive the ball, then they'd just re-kick it out to the corner for a shooter to knock it down. The biggest change in Boston's shot profile this year is the lack of shooting from the corners. It's decreased exponentially. And that's been a huge issue, not only for their spacing, but also for having, I like to call it a release valve. Once the defense pressures you up, having that guy in the corner was always that release valve. It relieved the pressure and you could kind of swing momentum a little bit. So I've been wondering how they were going to combat that. Now, Josh Minott had a bunch of success here in coming. They weren't short rolling, they were driving instead, but he was using that corner in a different way. Instead of being there to space it on the catch, he was driving to receive the shovel pass or the dump off to then use his verticality and pressure the rim that way. So it's a different way of utilizing the corner, but it's also a way of making sure that guys that are being asked to spread the floor along the baseline are still being included and still being effective.
Yeah, I really like how you brought up Josh Minott. He's one of the kind of underrated pieces, I think, for the Boston Celtics kind of going into this year. I know he's obviously signed, I believe, I believe he has 1 year left on his deal. I don't know if he's a 1-year contract. I could correct me if I'm wrong. But he's been a very impressive player for this Celtics team, nonetheless, this far this year. Obviously, someone coming from the Timberwolves, fighting through their rotation, trying to make a spot, but comes over to Boston and basically says that this is his last opportunity to thrive and does so. He had the DNP early on in the season versus the New York Knicks. I believe that was the second game of the season, but in the third game of the season got the start, absolutely looked impactful, and has seemingly kept that starting spot for a majority of his time here, kind of switching in back and forth, but has been that valuable defender. Obviously, for this Boston Celtics team, has been that aggressive downhill attacker, someone who can be a great dunker for this team as well. Also, what I noticed yesterday, he had 3 steals where he's been very, very solid in those stocks department, really replicating that role that maybe the Celtics do lose a little bit from getting rid of a guy in Drew Holiday who was so valuable on that end, working with guys like Derek White. But I do think a guy like Josh Minott has been very a good addition for this team due to the fact that, like you mentioned, Adam, he's been able to cut from the three-point line, be able to attack the basket and just kind of be that slasher that this team representally needs. He also trying to, like we know with the Boston Celtics, embodies that culture of just doing whatever it takes to succeed on the floor, regardless if that's throwing your body for a loose ball, fighting hard through screens, making sure you are going to dunk on the guy. He is going to make sure he gives that all for the Boston Celtics team. And we've seen that so far, specifically with the guy who maybe hasn't had that big of a role, or maybe someone who hasn't had that leap to really take that chance so far. I think this is great for Josh Minott's direction in his career.
Dude, he's been a steal. Just to put it out there, he's on a 2-year deal, but it's a team option on the second year, which they're almost guaranteed to pick up at this point. It's $2.5 million next year. If he plays like this, if he sustains the production we're seeing from him now, and that's not easy. We're still very early in the season. Heavy legs haven't started to emerge yet. Teams aren't ramping up their intensity just yet. There's going to be a lot bigger test for him down the line. But if he can sustain even 70% of what we're seeing right now, and then next season when Tatum's back, move into a bench role and be a very high energy guy off the bench, then I think he's going to be a long-term guy that sticks with this team, and B, earn himself a pay rise. And one of the reasons I think that even if you expect the Celtics to make a trade this year, you would not expect Minott to be moved, no matter how much he's rose his value, is simply because his contract's not worth moving right now. Like, you're not going to get an equal return on a 2.5 million. It's 2.3 million this year. Who's you going to get that can give you better impact than Minott on 2.3 million? For the Celtics, a long-term play, if they are trying to build his value so they can flip him down the line, is play him this year, sign him to take up the team option, sign him to a bigger deal, and then if a trade emerges in a few years, then maybe you've got some money matching there. But I'm only saying that because it's a retooling year. I'm not saying we should be talking trades. I'm just saying when you're retooling and you're picking up these young guys, these unproven commodities, the hope is twofold. You hope that they hit, and then you hope that their value comes to a point where you can, down the line, wheel and deal your way into flipping them for in a package for a star. That's you, unless they develop into a star themselves. I think he's been fantastic, dude. I think his length, his anticipation, the way he reads things on defense, the pressure that he puts on guys, his passing lane IQ has been exceptional. The Celtics, the way they're playing at the moment, just trying to pressure passing lanes with length. And they're not always trying to get the steal, but deflections are so disruptive to an offense because it forces you to reset. I think that he just really fits into that Missoula mold, and you can see it, man. Sometimes it's about situation and fit, and he didn't have a great situation for him over in Minnesota just because of the amount of talent and depth that was in front of him there. He's coming to Boston in a position where I'm kind of looking at Minott now as like, yo, the Celtics are getting in Josh Minott what the Pacers got in Aaron Nesmith. They're getting a guy with like a bunch of upside that just never had the opportunity because he was on a contending team. And the beauty of the Celtics this year, as harsh as it is to admit, is they are not a contending team, which is why he's suddenly found himself going from consistent DMP CDs into a starting role. I'm a big fan of what he's doing right now. His switchability on defense is insane. His verticality is huge as well. What I will say is, and I want to have a conversation about this, next year it's going to be a really tough decision to make because I think there's a lot of crossover between him and Jordan Walsh. Both are like incredibly lengthy guys, ridiculously athletic. Their free ball is developing. Their defense first, grimy, gritty, like get in your face, really play high pressure defense. And right now, there's a world where both of those guys can live in this rotation. Minott's your starter, Walsh can come off the bench. And Walsh has struggled for playing time. We spoke about this before we come on air. He's had a few games where it's been like 1 minute, 2 minutes. Then he had 23 minutes against Washington. But long term, once Tatum's back and you can only give one of these guys minutes, it might be time to make a really tough decision. And I think that at the moment, it's very clear that if you had to make the call between Jordan Walsh and Josh Minott, then you're picking Josh Minott every single time. And then it might be time for Jordan Walsh to go and find a team where he can have that Minott effect elsewhere.
No, I really like that point you brought up, Adam, kind of comparing them both. I know we talked about it before, but I kind of see that similarity as well. And I feel like this kind of competition battle we saw just 2 seasons ago, maybe in a little bit of a lesser role on that wing department with guys like Lamar Stevens and O'Shea Brissett. I do think guys like Josh Minott and Jordan Walsh could be a little bit more impactful than those guys were. But like you just mentioned, those are their role on that Celtics team was to be an 8th, 9th man energy wing to come off, play some very effective defensive minutes, go and get some rebounds, and to be that impactful dude. And O'Shea Brissett had that moment in, I believe it was game 2 of the Eastern Conference NBA Finals, where he came in for like 2-3 minutes, was a +7, was absolutely fantastic. And I think guys like Josh Minott and Jordan Walsh can get to those opportunities if they're given the playing time. Obviously, we've seen it a little bit more with Minott this year. But even dating before this season, I tweeted out before the season, I got it pulled up right here, that Josh Minott is such a Brad type of player to take in the draft. He's a hard worker, someone who bet on himself this season, fights for loose balls, gives the hustle a heart, and appreciates a high-flying athletic wing who can turn up when attacking downhill. Maybe without Tatum, they obviously prioritize playing to that type of speed. They've obviously have utilized him in that. You mentioned as well, his three-point shot has gotten a little bit better as well going into this season. I know in last night's game, he shot 3 for 6 from the 3-point line, so 50%, which is a little bit more intriguing with his kind of jump shot. And I do think the competition battle between him and Jordan Walsh will definitely be this season and maybe even going into next year. Because like you said, I could see them competing for that maybe 8th or 9th spot on this bench rotation to be that switchable wing, someone who could come and hit some big time shots and be an effective wing defender alongside the 2 J's and then Sam Hauser on that bench unit. As you said, I think Minott would kind of get the job as of right now, because Walsh hasn't been really getting much of that playing time. But I still am in that Jordan Walsh island and still in that Jordan Walsh camp believer. As we saw last night, he got 24 minutes, had his 7 points, 7 rebounds, 2 steal, really impactful game. And I think, like you mentioned, if it doesn't work out in Boston, he could have that role potentially somewhere else, similar like a Josh Minott or O'Shea Brissett that kind of blossomed for the Celtics team. And that could be good for his career as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the process, right? Is sometimes you're not going to stick on the first team and the first team that drafts you. And look, man, if Jordan Walsh goes on to have a long NBA career, no matter where he is in the rotation, it's a win. The dude was, if I remember correctly, he was a second round draft pick. Let me just pull it up. I've got it here actually, where exactly he was picked. He was 38th overall. Yeah, he was a second round pick. Like, you don't expect these guys to stay in the league very like much longer after their first deal. They might get a second deal on a 1+1 or a 2, a 2+1 with the second and third year as options. So he's already proving that he was a good pickup. Brad Stevens' eye for talent is ridiculous. And they've definitely got a mold of type of guy that they go for. I do think that it's very tough now because Walsh coming into the summer might have felt like this was an opportunity for him. And there's a world where he could have been having the breakout year that Josh Minott is currently having, but it just hasn't fallen that way for him. And Minott's just a more polished guy at the moment. I think his shot profile is a bit better. He had that one shot where he drove to the rim last night. He got cut off by the defense, kind of turned like, what was it? He pound dribbled and then went into a fadeaway and hit that like fadeaway too. Like, I think that was in the late third, early fourth. He's got more just versatility on both sides of the ball right now. And that's not to say that Jordan Walsh won't get there. And I do think that they can thrive and coexist in the rotation this year. But I do think that next year there's going to be some conversations to be had, or at least next summer.
I definitely agree. And I like how you mentioned that as well. I think Josh Minott, like you mentioned, is a little bit more of I think that's the best way to put it. He's a little bit more polished. He's obviously been in the NBA a couple years more than Jordan Walsh. Obviously, maybe some DNP CDs where that comes into play, but he was with the Minnesota Timberwolves. He was with a good organization. One in a coach as well that doesn't really prioritize rookies. I know you could argue the same for Joe Mazzulla, but we've kind of seen a difference with that Hugo Gonzalez this year. But for Josh Minott, I do think, like you mentioned, he has the opportunity to thrive in Boston, and being on that team contract, $2.3 million, that's a contract that the Celtics are not going to want to give up this season or next year. And I do think that will kind of, this competition battle with Minott and Jordan Walsh will kind of be a test to see who does stick into Boston next year. I believe Jordan Walsh is a unrestricted free agent next year. I believe he was on, or maybe he has one more year left on his deal. I don't know off the top of my head, but if they do bring in Minott on that team extension, maybe they do look to move off of a guy in Jordan Walsh, maybe with another contract or two to give him another opportunity, like we mentioned. Because me personally, as an NBA fan, I'm always rooting for a guy on second, third chances. I'm never going to count him out after that first chance. And for Walsh, that would definitely not be the case either.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be sucky because he spent so much time in the G League just developing his game. And they say that guys take a leap in the third year, but he just hasn't had enough NBA minutes to take a significant leap right now. I mean, he's still hella young. He's only 21. Guys are entering the league later than him, like older than him now. The Celtics have a team option with him too. It's the same thing as what they have with Josh Minott. I don't imagine they'd just decline that and let him leave. I think they'd pick it up and then try and flip him for an asset down the line. Just probably like a second round pick or whatever it is, right? Or you put him in a package. And that's if he even makes it to the end of the season. There's probably going to be a deal closer to the trade deadline just to get the team under the tax. And you might want to throw a Jordan Walsh in there because of the value he can have, especially now you can point to a guy like Josh Minott and be like, look what a guy with this skill set can do for you. But that's kind of where it's at with that battle there. I don't think it's going to be a major storyline, but it's definitely an area where I found really interesting just because when you saw them on the floor together against Washington, you could see that there was a load of similarities in the way they approach the game, similarities in the way they kind of look to lock down defense. Their style's quite transferable between the two of them. And I know we spoke about this before we come on air, but another reason why I like having both of them, at least for this year, is because if Minott's working next to Neemy Development in the front court, then you kind of know that if you need to, for whatever reason, maybe Minott's banged up, maybe he's got a cold, maybe you just want to keep offenses guessing, you can always insert Jordan Walsh and be like, okay, there's going to be a chemistry issue for a few games, but once those two figure out, no, probably not that many because they would have spent time together down in Maine, right? But you can kind of plug and play either of them at the 4 next to Neemius Cater, and then you can go from there and feel very confident that you're going to get replicable impact. And that gives you optionality in the front court, especially as you go down in deeper into the season and you need to start tweaking your rotations to keep guys fresh.
Yeah, I like that point that you made there as well. I think obviously I don't like you said, they played in Maine, so I don't think maybe picking up to the NBA speed chemistry issues might be
Yeah,
a
and
little bit
it's a
different.
different style. Like I think
Exactly.
when you watch Maine play, it's very clear that there's they keep a system throughout the entire like organization. So the
Mhm.
way Boston play, Maine try and play just so guys find it easier to plug in. But that's very difficult when the style that you built a chemistry in is now not the style that you're playing. And we're seeing that with some of the starting level guys. Derek White is adjusting to playing this style of basketball. And even though there's a load of continuity between him, Pritchard, Hauser, Brown, there's still been a disconnect there because the chemistry can take you so far, but until you've got to grips with the system that's in place and the principles of that system, you end up making a few mistakes. You only have to look at New York and their inconsistency over the first few games to kind of, and like they're really figuring it out about now. But just to see how continuity and chemistry go hand in hand for
Mhm.
repeatable high level performances.
No, yeah, I agree with that, and, like you just mentioned there as well, it's also shown a little bit with them trying to not only pick up to the new system and stuff, but also picking up to their new roles of having to be more impactful players, with them having more pressure from the defenders, opposing defenders and stuff like that as well, adjusting to that new role within the system has also kind of thrown up maybe some of their shooting percentages or how effective they can be with the Celtics team taking those bigger roles, obviously. But even with that being the case, still, the Celtics have still been able to be pretty consistent at the very least, even though they've gotten to some, rough head starts, like you mentioned, trying to figure out everything. I still think by the middle towards the end of the season, it will kind of level and be okay for the team.
Yeah, and like consistency is an issue across the board right now. I
Yeah.
mean, you can look at everybody apart from probably Jaylen over the last 5 games. There's been inconsistency. Neemy's a prime example. And look, man, I was hella against having Neemy as the starting big this year. I understood there was no other option. Like that's sometimes like the cards you dealt, and it's kind of shitty. But I was really against it in just terms of like, yo, this is your 4 string big man last year. You're moving him into a starting lineup and asking him to bang with starting level bigs. And then he's proven me wrong, which is great. I don't want to be right when I'm criticizing somebody. Like, what good's a victory? Like 2 people probably see me tweet it, or 10 people will watch me say it, and then it never existed. I don't care about that. What I care about is that I care about the Celtics winning. But Neemy has been a little bit inconsistent, but overall his performances have been 10 times better than I expected. And I think if we're all being honest with ourselves, we told ourselves it was going to be okay, but he's probably been better than what most of us expected, right?
Yeah.
And part of that is due to the fact that when he is playing well, there's a consistency throughout a game. The hard part is then developing that consistency on a game to game and not missing a box out, not getting beat or jumping into fouls where you're going to get into foul trouble early. These little tweaks are things that come over time, the same way that consistency comes over time. It's built through repetition. But I'm feeling a lot better about Neemy right now. I don't know about you.
Yeah, that's kinda how I stood in the camp as well. When Neemy first came over to Boston, when he first signed the two-way deal coming from the Stockton Kings, I was immediately bought in. Hearing that he was a runner-up for MVP, I thought that this guy would be able to take that leap and maybe be a little bit more impactful than he has been so far for the Boston Celtics in this role that we've seen. Obviously, there were some concerns going into this year, but similar to last year, there were some concerns from me personally about Luke Kornet stepping up to being that starting big, specifically when the Celtics went to Abu Dhabi and went against Nikola Jokic in the preseason, and they looked absolutely fine with Luke Kornet. And we obviously saw what Luke Kornet was able to do for the Boston Celtics last year, filling in for Kristaps Porzingis when he had his multitude of injuries and sicknesses, which had ultimately led to Luke Kornet being priced out by the Boston Celtics. Unfortunately for Neemias Queta, that wasn't the case, but Queta is kind of in that same type of role, trying to obviously replicate where the big man obviously left and trying to be that kind of X factor. And even though, like you said, Adam, he's had some good points, he's had some bad points, specifically Monday, where he doesn't box out Yusuf Nurkic or try to get the rebound, help the Celtics win the game, and ultimately cost them there at the end right there. Maybe make some mistakes, maybe gets into foul trouble early, isn't really the best in positioning on the defensive end, but he's polished those things here and there. And in some games, we don't get all those parts kind of working together. Maybe we get 3 out of the 4, 4 out of the 5. But when Neemy is 4 out of the 5 or 5 out of the 5, man, oh man, is he something special and can be an impactful backup big for this team. Last night, 15 points, 12 rebounds, 4 of those being offensive rebounds, really helping out for the Boston Celtics there, leading the team in offensive rebounds last night. Also had 5 assists, a steal, a block, 100% from the free throw line. I saw that this was, I believe, the first time a center or someone had done this for the Boston Celtics with these type of specific stats. So Neemy making himself in Celtics history, which is nice to see. I do think that he has kind of aspects to be, an overall good backup big. And I think that if the Celtics, similar to how the San Antonio Spurs have it with behind Victor Wembanyama, have kind of 2 backup bigs and Luke Cornett and Kelly Olynyk that can kind of work off each other's weaknesses. I think the Celtics, if they had another backup big similar to work off of Kata's weaknesses, that would make the Celtics even more dominant in that center rotation room. Maybe that's not something that they can get this season, but possibly something they could get next season or in the future. And I think that would be great for the team as well.
Yeah, I think this year the goal is to develop Neemy into that guy, into a guy that can plug your starter minutes as and when's needed, but can be a high level backup big, because that's what they're going to need. Now, the hard part is finding a big that you believe is the guy to anchor the middle of that floor moving forward. And that's an issue to worry about next season. I do think that right now he's playing well enough that we should feel confident enough that he can, how can I put it, not suck all the way through the year, because I think he's been really good up to this point. Few blips, but overall, for a guy that's been thrust into this position, like, that's a high pressure change in role, and he's definitely finding ways to succeed. So I'm quite happy with him. I was very interested that we saw some Josh Minott at the 5. I thought that was intriguing, not all too unexpected, just because, go small. If you want to go small, you want somebody with some verticality. And Josh could give you that. He can play above the rim defensively. He can be a guy that can rotate over. I have had questions about having the bigs play so far up to touch defensively. I think they're getting switched on to guys too high on the perimeter. That's leaving them in a position where you're really relying on their athleticism to stay in the play. And sometimes that's a bit unfair, especially if somebody sets a screen, or that, it just can go a bit awry sometimes. But overall, I've been really happy. I think this game against Washington was a solid win that can at least give you a game where you can look back on maybe 6 months from now, maybe next season, where you point and you was like, that was the first time we saw this version of the Celtics appear. And we've watched that kind of growth between then and now, the same way we did when it was like early JT and JB. And we were like, oh, that's when Jaylen and Jason really started to take control of this team and make it their own. This can be like, this is the first time we're seeing a Mazzulla coach system where he doesn't have the superstars, and now it's building the identity. Like, this is what you expect when you play Boston. So it was for that, I felt like it was a solid game.
Yeah, I really like that analogy right there. That's kind of where I thought the Boston Celtics would kind of be with this mindset. Obviously, with Jason Tatum going down, is trying to figure out this new identity and kind of obviously losing Porzingis, obviously losing Drew Holiday. Those are key vital pieces for how this team ran on both sides of the floor. So you need to kind of find that new identity, maybe find those plug and play pieces, or find out a new system or a new style to be better, because obviously teams are learning new things. We saw last year in the NBA Finals that the Pacers and the Thunder, two, teams that were very fast paced and high energy, made the NBA Finals, and slowing down the game kind of goes away. So every season there's new things that come into the league that teams pick up on, either offensive, defensive end, and it makes the league kind of respond to it, I guess, and kind of change their ways to adjust. And Joe Mazzulla is finding his ways to adjust this season to not only get the Celtics to be solid this year, but when Jason Tatum comes back, to have that identity kind of brought onto this team and to reshape it. Obviously, finding those new plug and play pieces, finding that next Drew Holiday, finding that next Kristaps Porzingis. It may not be that stretch big, that rebounder protector, or that effective all ball defender. It might be 2 different new type of player archetypes, but those types of guys could be those new faces and could be those new kind of stepping stones to help the Boston Celtics take that next leap, to get back into those conversations that, if Jason Tatum obviously wasn't out this season, would probably expect them to be kind of in, even if they don't have that same roster that they had last year.
No, I completely agree. I think it is just going to be about, not only about development, but in terms of individual, because that's going to be the biggest indicator of success this year, is incremental individual developments across the entire rotation, from Jaylen Brown all the way down to Amari Williams. It's just going to go all the way through. Everybody's going to have to show incremental improvements if this team's going to be anywhere near close to a team that can get out of the first round of the playoffs. But on the flip side, it's incremental collective improvements that are going to give this team a chance to make some noise next year or the year after once Tatum's back, once a few more moves have been made, but there's a clear DNA and ethos of the way this team want to play. So I'm going to leave it there for today. I'm going to ask everybody, if you've made it this far, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Link to the newsletters below. Make sure you go find Bruce over on socials. Bruce, where can I find you, homie?
You can find me over on Twitter at Bruce Velez. That's where I tweet most of my stuff. I'll be tweeting Celtics stuff for the season, so make sure to stay tuned over there.
Okay, everybody, make sure you catch Bruce there, and we will see you later this week. Deuces.